Liberal leadership candidates have just had their first opportunity to make their pitches to a national audience and to undecided Liberal Party members as they vie to become the next Prime Minister and to lead the party into the next election. 4 candidates were in the spotlight and on the stage in Montreal last night for the first of 2 debates ahead of the March 9th leadership vote. Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gould and Frank Baylis all making their cases during the French language debate that they are best suited to handle the threats against Canada from U.S. President Donald Trump.
We have the opportunity of regaining the confidence of Canadians, of uniting our country to defend our economy and to protect our values against threats coming from south of the border, and to counter our version of Trump here in Canada.
The other candidates equally touting their experience as being valuable in navigating Canada through crisis. Mark Carney pointed to his economic expertise as the former Bank of Canada governor. Chrystia Freeland to her success in negotiating trade deals, including NAFTA 2.0, during Donald Trump's first term. Frank Baylis emphasized his business and entrepreneurial skills as well. They will meet again tonight in Montreal in the English language debate. And let's bring in Janice McGregor, who's going to be looking ahead to that, even as she looks back to see how they did in French last night.
Yeah, good morning, Heather. Look, the point of holding a debate is allowing people who are competing for the same job to compare and contrast their various ideas. But one sentence, if you tuned in, that you heard over and over again last evening was, "Je suis d'accord." I agree with the candidate on my left or my right when it came to various policy positions. If the point of this evening, though, was to set up a very united front against Donald Trump's threats, for example, as we saw in the first round when they were talking about Canada and U.S. relations, or to want to appear kind of united against the perceived cuts that are coming under Pierre Poilievre, for example, in the later rounds when they were talking about economic policy and climate action. Well, if that was your measure of success for the Liberal Party, then absolutely mission accomplished here, because the candidates definitely spent more time criticizing Donald Trump and Pierre Poilievre than they did going on the attack against each other. I'm going to play you some tape here. This is from the final section, the climate action section of the debate. This is an area where there is a little bit of difference between the candidates. Karina Gould kind of alone in saying that she wouldn't scrap the carbon tax altogether. She would just put it on pause, any further increases, but she'd leave it in place. The others have said that they would replace it with other things. The moderator was trying to sort of get them to lay out their various positions on the carbon tax, and Mark Carney, in his answer, seemed to get a little bit lost and had to be kind of helped to get to the point here. Take a listen.
It's an economic imperative to reduce greenhouse gases so that we can have clean manufacturing, so that we can have clean infrastructure, so that we can have good jobs and export abroad as well. And we have to have a better trade relationship with the EU.
It got clipped a bit there, but Chrystia Freeland jumped in and said, well, about the carbon tax, Mark, you're actually going to cut that, right? And he confirmed yes. There was another moment, too, where the moderator, and this is very important to a Quebec audience, the moderator specifically was trying to nail Mark Carney down on his policy when it comes to East-West pipelines. Of course, this is a very hot political issue in Quebec in the past, where there hasn't been kind of the goodwill to approve a pipeline project to take oil from the west through to ports in the Maritimes. Here, Mark Carney specifically didn't repeat sort of what he had been said previously about sort of potentially using emergency powers to get a pipeline like that built. Instead, he was now casting this as something that might be possible in Quebec because of Donald Trump's threats, that it's sort of Quebecers might see this as an opportunity now. At the same time, he also said the federal government does have to act quickly when there are national interests in play. Tonight's English debate is going to feature the same themes as last night's French debate. We're going to see, whether the same friendly tone comes out of this or whether people do get more aggressive the second time out. But because we didn't have big policy differences to analyze last night, a lot of the attention went on figuring out sort of who was most comfortable in French. And on that, I will say, Mark Carney, even his body language, he did seem to be kind of shifting uncomfortably as he was trying to think on his feet in French.
Let's further to that point, Janice. You mentioned that Chrystia Freeland had jumped in on one of the things that he said in terms of the carbon tax. There was another moment where she did the same thing on really a key point of meaning that was lost in translation to a certain degree. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and this is something that Conservatives pounced on even before the debate was over. It was a moment where Frank Baylis had been talking about his position on Palestinian statehood. And Mark Carney jumped in and intended, I believe, to convey that he agreed with the thrust of what Baylis had been saying. But how it came out in French for him was that he said, "We agree with Hamas." Freeland then, standing beside him, had to kind of smooth things over, correct him, jump in, clarify things so that that error did not stand. Afterwards then, speaking to reporters, Carney and Baylis tried to smooth things out.
I said that we all were in agreement against Hamas, or at least the intention.
There's no question that sometimes myself, we all get tripped up in different second language or third languages and that. I'm absolutely certain Mr. Carney did not mean to say he supported Hamas in any way.
Of course, Baylis, Montrealers, somewhat sympathetic, people doing their best to communicate in French. It must be said, Baylis probably the most comfortable on the stage of the four of them. There was another moment, too, where Carney was trying to explain what he felt should never be on the table in negotiations with the U.S., and he was trying to say supply management and appeared to kind of struggle to remember how to say that in French. Again, Chrystia Freeland right beside him kind of jumped in to sort of emphasize, she sort of saying, you know, as it came to gestion d'offre, you know, to know how to say that in Quebec, where this is such an important issue, absolutely critical for anyone who is going to be leading the party going forward and dealing with that audience. But to see on a number of occasions, really, Chrystia Freeland sort of intervening, helping him out to get the message across, that is behavior of a loyal lieutenant for sure. But what will Liberal supporters make of this kind of chumminess instead of competitiveness between the two rivals? This debate between the two of them ended with a hug, not a handshake.
Janice, thank you very much.